Collin here. Just walking around Kiev, Ukraine. A few more days here before I'm heading home to start working again. And I wanted to make a video just explaining how the hell I'm able to travel so much, and how I'm able to continue travel, and how I've managed this work-travel life balance, and how you could do it too if you wanted to. You may think I'm really rich, or I have a family that's able to support me doing this while I just kind of go off around the world, but that's really not the case. I'm actually able to work in 2 separate countries, travel in between, have nearly half the year off every year, and make money while I'm doing it. So make money in the process. It's really it's a pretty sweet deal. Any of you can get into it. I'm not super lucky, or I didn't know somebody. It was just something I pursued and made happen. So basically, what I do for a living is I make wine. So seasonal work, working in wineries, physically making wine, right from grape to bottle, the whole process, everything that goes on. I just kind of got my foot in the door, applied to a winery that I live close to back home, and every year they take unexperienced people, often uneducated people in the field, and train them on the job. So I've been able to do that back home. Luckily, I live near the Niagara region in Canada, which is a major grape growing region. So that was a bit lucky on my part, given that I grew up and my whole family lives there. It's kind of near Toronto, about an hour's drive from Toronto south towards Niagara Falls, very close to Niagara Falls. But yeah, basically I got my foot in the door, started working seasonally. So the season starts about September. So in September, beginning of September, sometimes sort of late August into September, the season starts up, and they bring people on, and you work long hours, about 12 hours a day on a rotating shift. It depends on what company you work for. Some companies work 12-hour days, 6 days a week. The company I work for doesn't do that. It's a complicated schedule. There's not quite as many hours. It's a switch between day and night, but that's not really relevant right now. The point is that you work lots of hours for a short period of time, making wine. So the whole process, everything that goes into it, you learn everything about how it's made, and it's really an interesting business. So like I was saying, it starts up sort of late August, early September, and you work kind of depending on your seniority and how much experience you have, you'll typically work on till sort of mid to late November, and potentially into December as well, sort of after things start to slow down a bit. So that, you get 3 to 4 months of work in. It pays pretty well. It's definitely not a minimum wage job. It pays pretty well, and you're able to save up money throughout that time. I'm able to save up money throughout that time, and then I fly down to New Zealand. So I've actually started off getting a working holiday visa for New Zealand, and it's for 2 years for a Canadian. So some people it's just 1, but for me I was able to get a 2-year visa to do that, and I flew down there kind of the first time around. It was the end of February that I flew down there. And the season down there, doing the same thing, starts kind of late February into March, and then it'll go into kind of May and potentially June if you're lucky. So basically you're chasing the seasons back and forth between Canada and New Zealand doing this job, and because obviously the seasons are opposite. So I was able to go down there and build a relationship with a company while I was on my working holiday visa, and now I get sponsorships by that company to go down there. So I'm able to get a visa every year to return and do what I've been doing. So it's worked out really, really well, because I got to travel to the other side of the world for work, and it's a kind of a permanent rotation, and I have months off in between. So I'm done Christmas time. I usually spend Christmas with my family, and I fly down there ASAP. I usually fly over towards Asia. That's what I have been doing, at least. I've been flying to Asia because it's you kind of got to stop in there. A lot of flights that go to New Zealand, you're going to stop through Asia anyways. So I spend January and February traveling around Asia, just kind of going where I feel like going, on my way to my job in New Zealand. And then I go to New Zealand. I work for 3 months-ish. This last year I worked for 5 months. I was able to get a particularly long contract, which was great, but it's probably not going to be the norm moving forward. So yeah, you go down there, you work for 3 or 4 months if you're lucky, and then you're done May, June, in there, and you keep on traveling. So I gotta go back home to Canada to start up in September, late August, September. So June, July, August, you get to travel again. So you get to keep on moving, and basically I've made money, and everywhere I travel to is kind of on the way home or on the way to my job, because I gotta go in one direction or another around the world. So I just make stops along the way with the few months I have in between my job. And the beauty of it is it pays well enough, and you don't have so much time off in between that you spend all of that money. So I'm actually saving money in the process while I do this. Sorry, it's just raining a bit, so I'm going to try to get under some cover here. Yeah, and so that's basically been how I've been able to travel so much every year, and how I'm going to be able to continue traveling every year, kind of until I want to stop. This is something I could do indefinitely. There's no reason why I would need to stop, or why I couldn't do it for the rest of my life if I wanted to. It's unlikely that kind of lifestyle will appeal to me for the rest of my life, but certainly for the foreseeable future, it's more than ideal. And I just want to say, I talk to a lot of people about doing this, and they think, I must have a degree, or I must know somebody in the industry, but really it was none of that. I kind of fell into it by accident. I was looking for a job in my field, and I just kind of ran out of money, when this all began, and I just needed a job. I just needed, even part-time or minimum wage. And I answered an ad, a harvest position ad, thinking I would be, picking fruit at minimum wage, and it would be a pretty awful job. But it ended up being this winery position, and luckily the company I got with, they were in a bit of a staffing issues, and I slid in really nicely and was able to learn a lot very fast. So I was pretty fortunate in that sense. But I mean, any of you could apply to the wineries in the summertime. So basically early summer, once it starts getting really hot, that's when you want to be applying to these positions. Now in Canada, US, it's often called harvest cellar hand positions. Some places in the world it's vintage cellar hand. Sometimes it's just cellar hand. So those are the positions you want to be searching for, you want to be looking for, and they just want people with a good attitude, the people with a good work ethic, good attitude, and are willing to put in the hours and to put in the work. It can be pretty physical at times, but it's also really educational, really interesting, and anybody can do it. I personally have trained a number of people who have no experience in wine, no relevant education in any of it. And they come on and they do what I've been doing, and they could keep doing it if they wanted to. So it's really an amazing opportunity. I encourage any of you who want to kind of get out of your daily grind and you're not really feeling what you're doing and you want to kind of work and travel, this is a great avenue to do that. You know, I'm going to keep doing it. I consider it kind of my career at this point. If I were to settle down and just stop traveling, I would enter a winery full time, just because I really enjoy the work. Okay, sorry about that. It really started to pour, so I had to cut it short and move to under some cover here. But like I was saying, it's a great way to get all your traveling in, get all of that done, make some money while you do it, and learn about a really cool industry. So, like I was saying, I work in the Niagara region in Canada for the Northern Hemisphere, and I work down in New Zealand for the Southern Hemisphere. And there's many other places where you can do this if one of those or either of those aren't as realistic for you to work in or not very appealing. So for the Northern Hemisphere, there's a lot of opportunities in California, probably more than any other one place in the world. So if you're American or you're able to work in America, or if you simply would like to work in California, there is a lot of opportunity in California for the Northern Harvest, and it's about the same. It's about the same. The harvest period, the months are about the same. Just about everywhere you go in the Northern Hemisphere, it does vary. It does vary slightly, depending on where you go. But by and large, there's overlap. So there's a lot of opportunity in California. There's a lot of opportunity, like I said, where I work in Niagara. There's a lot of, well, there's some opportunity out in British Columbia, the west coast of Canada, as well as sort of Washington State and Oregon. These are your northern hemispheric hotspots, and of course Europe. You know, all over Europe there's opportunity. The difference with Europe is that they're typically smaller places that bring in just a few people. A lot of companies sort of in Niagara or in California bring in a lot of people, like dozens of people. So there's just piles of opportunity for newcomers. Europe, it can be a little more difficult because they're smaller wineries, family-owned wineries, and they just bring in a few people, and often they are looking for people who have at least done it a few times. You know, have some experience under their belt or some education, relevant education under their belt. So it's a bit of a different story in Europe, but there is plenty of opportunity there once you've done it once or twice. I definitely will be going across Europe and be doing some vintages in Europe instead of going to Niagara, because I'm really interested in that. And now that I have the skills under my belt, I'm kind of able to find those jobs. But that's the bit of a difference for Europe. And then there's some really kind of out there places that are lesser known for wines, a little bit more of adventurous locations in the Northern Hemisphere, because, you know, they make wine in a wide variety of places, but those are kind of the hot spots for the Northern Hemisphere. Now, if you're going to work in the Southern Hemisphere, Australia, New Zealand are your places to go, especially as first-timers. There's just piles and piles of opportunity, and they offer, for many countries, they offer the working holiday visa. So it's a good way to get your foot in the door with a visa without needing a sponsor from a company down there to work. So those are your big Southern Hemispheric hotspots. Also, you can work in South Africa, Argentina, Chile, but the problem with those, you just don't make as much money there. So Australia and New Zealand, you make a lot of money, especially Australia. I haven't done it yet in Australia. I've talked to a lot of people that have. You make a very good money in this business, doing what I've been doing in Australia. It's something I will be looking into potentially for next year, if not the year after, just because of the money that's available. You know, I have built a relationship with a company in New Zealand, so it's going to be a bit of a balancing act in that sense, because I don't want to lose that opportunity. But definitely those are your two those are your two southern hemispheric hotspots for first timers, and if you want to actually make some money. A lot of people do go to Chile, Argentina, South Africa because it's a great experience. I will do it at some point, but for what I understand, it's a bit of a scratch. So you're not really saving any money by doing that, or making any money by doing that. It's just kind of a scratch, financially speaking. So that's why I haven't done that yet. I will do it for the experience at some point. And if you're interested to go to those countries, it is a way to work and to kind of just support yourself being there. But those are kind of your big hotspots all over the world to do this job. And you know, for me, I'm going to try to go to all of these places. You know, I've been doing it for a little under 4 years now, and I will be doing it for a number of years going into the future. So it's just too good of an opportunity. I am making money. I do have some plans down the road that don't necessarily involve doing this, and you know, I'm trying to save some money to move forward with that. But for now, this is just amazing, and really that's how I'm able to travel around the world every year, in case you were wondering. And that's how you can travel as well. I really encourage you to look into it if this sounds at all appealing to any of you. Just look into it and just send out the resumes. Send out your resumes. Chances are you'll find a job. Just about anybody can. It's pretty hard to fumble through it and not find a job somewhere. Bigger companies, you're going to have a better chance of finding a place because they really need people, and just about everywhere in the world, finding enough people to fill up the harvest can be a challenge. So yeah, just send off your resumes, give it a shot, and I promise you, you'll be able to get into it. It's really surprisingly easy, and it's a lot of fun. So if you have any questions at all about doing this, any questions about me personally, about where I've been, just feel free to ask. I'm pretty good at answering. This page is really just in its infancy, so you know, if you have any questions, you know, I'll likely ask within a day or two, you know, depending on the time difference and all that. But yeah, so any questions, just let me know. I'll be happy to answer them, and hopefully I'll see you in a winery somewhere around the world. So have a good one.